Hello, this is Deb with the UAP Medical Coalition. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this video belong solely to the speakers and not necessarily to the UAP Medical Coalition, its employees, volunteers, or affiliates. All medical references are for informational purposes only. This is not a consultation or therapy session, and this content can be triggering for some and is not meant for children. Thank you, Michael, for coming today. I'm very happy to have you come speak. Can you please let people know who you are?
Yeah, sure. My name's Michael Cameron. I was born in the East End of London, in the United Kingdom, England. I was I grew up in a strict Roman Catholic Irish family, in a strict Roman Catholic environment. I was born premature, an unexpected child. So I was in hospital for quite a while, and I'm a new author. I wrote a book about the experiences that I've had, but my book focuses primarily on the childhood home I grew up in, where a lot of my early experiences took place, and also in I grew up in a schoolhouse. So my dad was the school keeper, and we lived within the grounds of this school. So the school itself, as well, is where some of the uh, abduction activity happened. The house was actually owned by the Roman Catholic Church. So in my book, I've written about all of these experiences, and I do touch upon the mental health aspects of being an abductee and what is known as a MILAB, a military abductee, and the effects that it can have on a person, the trauma that carries over into your life, throughout your life, actually. It doesn't go away. And it's because it's a topic that's never discussed on really, it's touched upon briefly in groups, but it's not a subject that is, I believe, touched upon as it should be. um, you know um, and this is something I'm passionate about at the moment. In a lot of the podcasts that I've been doing, I do speak passionately about the mental health issues that do come up. um, so I grew up in a house basically that experienced a lot of poltergeist activity. I often say that when I was being born, my grandmother on my mother's side, she was leaving the world, and I was actually being born and coming back here. So we might have passed each other on the way. Um, but when I was a baby, the house experienced a lot of this type of phenomena where there was a lot of cold spots in the house, um, and disembodied voices calling out mostly my mum's name when she was in the house alone. She would normally be, upstairs, and she would hear voices and then turn around and there's nobody there. There was I have three brothers, Francis, Kevin, and Sean. Sean's 2 years older than me. And the two older ones, Francis and Kevin, they experienced the poltergeist activity. So at one time one Francis was laying in bed, and we had a big heavy oak wardrobe that suddenly toppled over, pushed onto the bed on top of him. But he wasn't hurt; he was just shocked, of course. And then Kevin at one time was coming up the stairs, and something rushed past him, and he felt the hands, something push against him and pushed him down the stairs. And again, he wasn't hurt, luckily, but he was, in shock. And, in the night time, when my parents used to go to bed, and everyone was in bed really, the house itself. So I grew up in the 1970s in London, and the house that we were living in, the walls, they were made of strong concrete, and if you were to bang them with your hand, you would just create the sound of a thud at best. But so when my parents were going to bed, they would experience this really loud echoing sound from banging on the walls. So it'd be like listening to a stereo surround, if you like, sound. So it's echoing, and this went on and on and on for quite a long time. And my dad used to get up and investigate, but there was never nothing there. I mean, he did say as well that when my grandmother was alive, she used to like to rock on this rocking chair in one of the rooms. And when she passed, and when she died, there was a lot of, my dad could hear the sound of this rocking chair moving. And when he went to investigate, the chair would be moving, but then would come to a halt, like somebody had just got up out of it and moved off. So, in the beginning, the poltergeist activity wasn't, it didn't seem to be very, it wasn't dangerous, but it was becoming increasingly more so that somebody could be seriously hurt. And because my parents lived in a really, it's an area basically with priests and nuns, and the Irish were, it's a close knit Roman Catholic environment. So, and because my dad was he was a pillar in the community at the time as well, involved with local politics and a union leader. So, I guess they didn't really want to say anything. They didn't want to, have people laugh at them, or they were just private, really secretive. So, but in the end, he had to seek out a priest, and the priest come to the house, and he walked through, blessed it, and then this type of activity stopped for a while. So this was, and when I was a baby, my dad, he didn't tell me straight away, but later on, when I was a little bit older, he did tell me, that they experienced around where my cot would have been. There was, balls of light that would fly over my cot, go through the walls, and also there was entities that were seen standing over my cot, looking down at me. And this was seen by my dad, my mum, and I think it was my brother Francis at the time. So, and that one time, Sean, my other brother, was like saying that he was so terrified of something that he would see in the bedroom, because I shared the bedroom with him in the cot, that later on he would be quite terrified to go into the room on his own. But then eventually that stopped.
When did the UAPs become involved in your life?
When I was 4 years old. That was one of the first sightings I had within the school grounds with Sean.
And can you briefly give us a background on your history with UAPs?
As I said, I'm an alien abductee, and I've been since a young child. And my interactions within this phenomena still occur to this day. I've always been somebody who's sensitive to electromagnetic energies. Um, Highly intuitive, and I have, as I document in my book, a lot of the abductions that have taken place in my life are actually outside of the body. I'm easily able to move outside of my body, um, either outside or astrally, um, moving about.
Okay, so you have sensitivity to electromagnetic and you have intuition. Do you have any other physical effects as a result of your encounters with UAPs?
Um, I would just say, I do have, I do have trauma related, issues that go back from my childhood. So it's fragmented memories. Um, I suffer from these type of things. I was diagnosed last year with complex PTSD as a result of multiple abuses involving this type of phenomena over a period of time, which have never been resolved because of the isolation within this subject. You're basically, you're an island, really. And, it's difficult to trust.
So Did you ever speak to your therapist related to these anomalous experience?
No, because during them times, in the over in the UK, there's nothing in the UK really for this type of thing. When I was growing up, there was no, some people say, someone said to me the other day, about something that I had, it could be a string memory from my childhood, but, in the 1970s, these type, especially in the UK, these type of subjects were zero. There was nothing in the media, there was nothing on the TV or in my immediate environment that could create an association with anything from either, the paranormal, cryptozoology, UFO, UAP, alien abduction. So, um, so no, there was nothing there really. Um,
So, when you spoke to your therapist, you just left all of the background of the living in that house, the poltergeist, the priest coming, all of it out?
well, when I was 16 years old, when I was 15, my dad died, passed quite quickly through a massive heart attack. This is detailed in my book. Um, and there was a period, there was an experience that I had where I see him. He appeared to me, dressed pretty much in the same way as what he did when he was alive physically. Um, and I was, just naive and foolish enough to share this experience with what would be my family GP. My family GP was Irish, and he come from the same area in Dublin as my dad. He was friends with my dad. A very good doctor, but by no means a man who had bedside manners. He was rude to his patients and disrespectful. But I actually shared this with him when I was grieving my dad, and he, his response to that was to have me try to have me sectioned under the Mental Health Act because he thought that I'd, lost my mind, and that was just telling him that I'd actually had an experience seeing my dad, but I didn't mention anything about the abductions because I think he would have put me in a straitjacket. Um, and it was only because the intervention of my mum at the time that stopped him from actually physically removing me from the house and having me put into, a mental asylum, because this was the mentality of doctors back then. Um, and it's not easy. It's not easy even now in 2023 when you're, there's I would say there's many abductees in the United States and in the United Kingdom that have trust issues with healthcare professionals, because it's difficult enough to share these type of experiences with anyone else, let alone an healthcare professional in perhaps psychology or psychiatry. um, it could be quite dangerous. But having said that, in my book I do tell about, when I touch upon complex PTSD, I do talk about, I did seek out a community medical nurse to discuss about, um, you know, um, these type of these, the physical, the physical effects of, I actually, I went to her first of all because I have, um, I suffer from cluster headaches. So it's a neurological disorder with no cure. And I got this as a result of a physical attack one day by 20 youths who repeatedly kicked me in the head. And later on, I had bleeding on the brain for 1 year that was not detected. But anyway, I went to see this nurse, and then eventually, I started to um, tackle the, I began to speak to her about the alien abductions, but I just approached it with just asking her questions about, have you ever experienced anything in the paranormal realm, or, to see her reaction, because she was she was quite a young nurse, and she said that she'd had experiences with paranormal. So then I went on and I began to tell her, that I have had experiences with non-human beings, other type of entities, and the military. Um, and she was quite interested, and she was asking me, she wanted to know more. So she asked me, is there any literature that she could read? And I pointed her to the late Professor John Edward Mack's book Abduction, and she obtained a copy of this, and I know she read it. She was asking me questions about it afterwards, and I was explaining to her that there's nothing in the UK, no support groups. There's nothing in the UK that will give assistance to abductees, um, and or anyone really in the paranormal, you know, realms that have experienced trauma-related um, incidents. And I said to her as well, perhaps there's probably people she works with, colleagues that may even be abductees. It's not something you normally shout about. Um, and her response to it is that she wanted to help. She wanted to help people like me. And she then said that she will approach the subject and talk, discreetly to certain people that she feels could help. So I then started to begin little steps in trying to encourage healthcare professionals with the NHS within the UK to look at this subject. And I told them that there is a huge secretive community of abductees that exist that need help. Even if it's talking therapies, someone to listen to them without ridicule, in a safe environment where they can open up and explain not the fact, that they've been abducted, but the after effects of abduction and how that affects them on a day-to-day basis in all areas of your life. It just has a huge, deep personal impact on you. Everyone wants to know, through disclosure, what the lights are in the sky. Nothing's ever spoken of about the personal, effects mentally on abductees. So this is what I started to do.
Oh, I think that's a very, very amazing thing. Obviously, I'm appreciate that. I'm happy to say that we have spoken to people in the UK who are developing assistance for experiencers. So I wanted to ask about the psychosocial consequences. You spoke about having shared experiences with your family members. So I imagine that you were able to get some support from them, but did you have difficulty communicating with friends and other people? I mean, beyond the medical professionals about what happened?
Well, when I was growing up, I was isolated, so I didn't really have friends. But the ones that I did have, I never spoke about any of this to them. It was kept secret. So, as I always say to other people, we live two lives. The one we live here, what everyone can see, and the one we have within the higher, with the multi-dimensional realms. So, it's a it's difficult. I mean, I never mentioned anything from to anyone in school when I was at school, but it was clear to me now. It was clear now to me that I actually experienced PTSD even when I was a child and when I was a teenager at school, and I was experiencing the symptoms of these effects, but I didn't know then, that I had that. It wasn't something I looked even at until I was diagnosed with complex PTSD. Um, but it's difficult because who do you tell? Even now, when I was writing my book and people knew I was writing the book, and it was like saying to me, "Oh, Michael, you've written the book, or you're writing the book." And I went, "Yeah." What's it about? And I told them about the paranormal. But when it come to the alien part, I just sort of change the subject. So it's difficult even now to sometimes discuss it with people that you're an abductee. And as I say to people, you know talking about abduction from somebody outside of it, even people in the UFO communities that experience lights in the sky, they see orbs or various other anomalies. It's their reaction is different when they're reading, about it through literature or even looking at podcasts. But when they meet somebody who's actually an abductee, it's a different ball game. Sometimes you're treated differently. Or I've had people unfriend me. I've had people never want to talk to me again because they're frightened that this will happen to them. But as I explain to people, the abduction programs, especially with the Greys, what we know now as the Greys, they happen to you as a child. They're not interested in you if you're an adult. And as I say, the adult was the child, and the child is the adult. It's a program that continues throughout your life. And if you're taken as a child, as an infant, and progressively you go as a teenager, as a young adult, as a mature adult, and pretty much into your later years. It's but if you're somebody who is not an abductee, you're not going to be taken. So there's no fear in that. But it's this lack of understanding.
Hmm. And did you continue to at least get support from your family as an adult?
No, I don't have support. Both my parents are dead. My grandparents are dead. My uncles and aunts are dead. So, and as for my brothers, Francis and Kevin, I have no contact with them, and Sean, we don't talk. So I don't have any family support in any way, shape, or form. But as for friends, it's different. I don't have that either, really. I have two really good friends that I can, discuss things with to a certain degree. But it's difficult to understand from anyone who's not in that situation. It's it can be dangerous sometimes. I'm writing the second book, and I will explain in the book why it can be dangerous to be an abductee where you got nowhere to go. So that second book will have trigger warnings on it because of the sensitive nature of what I will write about. um,
S- So, can you please tell people what you would like to see happen regarding supporting people who have had these experiences and related to treatment, from the medical professionals?
well, they have I think for myself and probably for other people, but I can't speak for everyone. For me, what would be helpful would be having somewhere you can go and you can discuss privately about what's happening to you. They're not going to be able to stop it, but they can certainly you can find support within the healthcare professionals that are willing and open to to help. Um, I wouldn't. For me, I wouldn't take. I don't need medication. That isn't what I need. It's just someone. It's knowing that you're not alone in it. Really, it can be a very isolated and lonely path when you're experiencing anything like this. And for me, for myself, I'm not speaking for anyone else, but for me as an abductee, my experiences, should we say, wasn't positive. um as I did detail in my first book, some of the experiences that I've had would be what would be considered torture. sexual assault through various types of entities as a teenager. Um, and, I've had demonic encounters throughout my life. Again, these are not, some people come into the UFO communities now and they say the demons are not demons. Demons and the greys are two different types of entities. I'm pretty sure they know each other. Each of them have their own agendas towards humans, but they're certainly not the same. Um,
So I think in summary, what you're hoping to find is for people to have deeper understanding across the board and more support, and for people to not jump to medicating, but to provide that support and validation.
yeah, of course. I mean, the medication's not going to help you. It is more the talking therapies. It's unless you're psychotic or anything like that. But from most abductees are nothing like that. They're not psychotic. They don't have what would be called to such a degree as psychological disorders. It's just to do with trauma and what they've experienced. And it's walking through that, assisting, helping them, even in baby steps, to begin to heal from that trauma. I mean, I'm very much an advocate now in speaking out about this type of the aspects of this type of phenomena, and I think it does. As I said before, it needs to be addressed because, you know, again with disclosure, well, abductees have been disclosing this information for decades, and and it needs to, they need help. Um, and this is what I'm pretty much about now. I'm moving forward in a big way with this type of stuff, with this information. And I'm in the UK now. I'm going to be speaking to other people in the healthcare professionals about this type of phenomena that exists, that's hidden still, um, in 2023, and seeing where we can go with it.
Well, thank you so much for coming and advocating for yourself and for others in today's interview. Can you please let people know where they can find you if they have more questions?
Yeah, you can reach me on my Facebook page, Michael Cameron. You'll see a picture of me on the cover, along with my book. Is advertised on there, or you can reach me on my email, Michael Cameron 2022 at gmail.com, and you're quite happy to reach out to me, and we can have a discussion.
Thank you again for coming today. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, and thank you for everyone who listened. And I just want to remind everyone that the UFO Connector does have a page for experiencer support if anyone wants to take a look at it. Okay, thank you.